I'm going to be working on a drawing that involves a Seaking, the Pokemon. While I was looking up references, I came across this very odd article. I'll screen share it. I made Seaking look like Peter Lorre, and apparently there are people who think it was based on Peter Lorre, but I'm not one of those people. Also, Ghost Cube Bird. Yeah, this is something that came up while I was looking up images of Seaking, and the artist, I guess, is named Cat Type. This is from 2023. This is an interesting read about, I don't know, how a rumor got started that Seaking is based on actor Peter Lorre. I'll just read bits of it here. Here's a painting I did a long time ago of a Seaking with the face of Peter Lorre. And because I can't say it any better, here's the description I wrote for it on DeviantArt. So I was playing Pokemon Heart Gold when I noticed that the black spot on Seaking's head kind of looked like a greasy comb over, and then I say to myself, holy crap, Seaking looks just like Peter Lorre, and history was made, and then goes on about referencing an old 1941 cartoon as reference for drawing this. Then the artist says, years later, I'm still so proud of myself for coming up with this gag that I named my male Seaking in Pokemon Go Peter Lorre, but then, as my luck would have it, as soon as I evolved it, I caught a female Goldeen with slightly better stats, so instead of transferring Peter Lorre, I named the Goldeen Sea Queen, evolved it, and kept both. I hadn't done much with either Seaking for years, until a while ago, when I needed to transfer some Pokemon to make space. Normally the hair's width difference between Sea Queen's and Peter Lorre's stats would have been a deciding factor in Sea Queen's favor, but I was still so pleased with myself for coming up with that Peter Lorre gag that I transferred Sea Queen and made Peter Lorre my buddy. So that got me thinking about my original Seaking painting and how I might redo it in Procreate. Instead of looking up the original on DeviantArt, I thought it'd be easier to just Google Seaking Peter Lorre on my phone. After all, there's no way anything else like this could exist. Only a weirdo like me could make this connection. I got only a handful of hits, and not only was I disappointed to not find my painting, I was shocked to find this. Reddit Pokemon is Seaking based on Peter Lorre. And someone on Reddit not only made the same connection, they actually tried to convince other people that Seaking is actually based on Peter Lorre. Like, no dude, Seaking doesn't look like Peter Lorre. Peter Lorre just looks like a cartoon fish. Maybe it's a bit egocentric of me, but when I saw this, I immediately thought this person got the idea directly from my DeviantArt post. Of course, it's entirely possible this person made the connection all on their own, but the OP emphasizes how Seaking's markings look like a comb-over in their comment, which is the first thing I said in my description on DeviantArt. Older Redditors, have you seen the Looney Tunes and saw sometimes this weird guy with huge eyes, 2 teeth, and a comb-over? He was based on some very popular celebrity from long ago, 40s, but I can't help but think Seaking was based on some caricature of him. His marks look like a comb-over. It's not just that it's an odd coincidence, it's that it's really flimsy evidence to support the theory. The comb-over isn't the most distinguishing feature of any Peter Lorre caricature. Just look at the maggot from Corpse Bride or the hanging lamp from Brave Little Toaster. You know, this looks like it could be a freaky-looking Pokemon, actually. I mean, they've done so many inanimate object Pokemon, like Rotom turning into a refrigerator or a lawnmower, or like garbage bags, gears. Like, seriously? They could just do a lamp like this as a Pokemon. No, if there's one feature that makes Peter Lorre character, it's the eyes. Huge, usually half-lidded eyes with dark circles under them. Seaking's eyes don't have any of these features. They're just big fish eyes. If they were at least half-lidded, then it actually looked like Peter Lorre. The reason I made that painting was because of the idea of Seaking being a Peter Lorre character is so absurd. The markings may have given me the idea, but they don't actually look like much like a comb-over. The stripe closest to its face is longer than the others. It almost goes all the way down the side of its face. When you think of it, it's more like greasy emo hair than a comb-over. In fact, if it hadn't been for the sprite that gave me the idea, I probably would have never made the connection. I said in my DeviantArt description that I was playing Heart Gold, but I specifically remember looking at the sprite from Crystal. The down-tilted angle makes it look more like a comb-over. I kept that front stripe a little longer in my painting, but I cut it way down in order to make it look like Peter Lorre. Now, it'd be weird enough if that was the only instance of this happening, but I somehow, while writing this, found 2 more examples of people putting a picture of Seaking next to Peter Lorre and saying, see, don't they look alike? And unlike the first example, there's nothing I can point to say that they may have gotten the idea from me. This one's from DeviantArt. Peter Lorre, Looney Tunes Peter Lorre, Seaking. Is it just me, or does Seaking look a lot like black and white era movie star Peter Lorre? And then one from Twitter. Yeah. Something I've always wondered. Why the hell is Seaking's design basically a fish caricature of Peter Lorre? If they wanted to support their point, they could have at least picked pictures that looked more similar to each other. I've already mentioned how the angle of the crystal sprite gave me the idea, but look at the sprite from Gold version. The stripes on this sprite are much shorter than usual, and look more like a comb-over than any other depictions of Seaking. It's probably the closest Seaking has ever looked to Peter Lorre in an official capacity. So if I were to try to make a convincing argument for this theory, I'd use this sprite and find a picture of Peter Lorre that looked the most like it to pair up with it, like this. Okay, maybe this isn't the best example because Peter doesn't have hair in this picture, but I was just amused that I was able to find a picture of him making almost the exact same face as Seaking here. Yeah, Peter Lorre, Seaking, separated at birth. Yeah, I'm surprised Matt Pat hasn't made a video on this. I mean, isn't he like running for Congress or something? He should make this his 2026 campaign promise. Matt Pat is going to get to the bottom of whether Seaking was based on actor Peter Lorre. Coincidence? I think not. Okay, something I'd like to ask these people. If you really think Seaking is based on Peter Lorre, how do you explain the horn? If it's supposed to be a Peter Lorre fish, he wouldn't just randomly have a horn, would he? There would have to be some instance of either Peter Lorre playing a character with a horn or a parody of him with a horn. If anyone can come up with a reasonable explanation of why a Peter Lorre fish would have a horn, I will have no choice but to give in and accept my Peter Lorre fish horn masters. More importantly, if you're going to make a Pokemon based on Peter Lorre, wouldn't it make more sense to make it a ghost or dark type given his association with Horror? He was the titular Raven in Roger Corman's The Raven, so how about a ghost flying Pokemon? Here's a couple doodles I did, and here we have a Peter Lorre bird. I know I said he's a Raven, but I really want to call him Lorkeet. You know what would be really great? A Peter Lorre Pokemon that evolves into a Vincent Price Pokemon. Unfortunately, when I think Vincent Price bird Pokemon, all I can think is Honchkrow. And there we go. I like how Honchkrow and Murkrow, it's pre-evolution, all look like it's basically just a bird wearing a funny hat. You know, it's funny. Peter Lorre was before my time, and yet feels very of my time because of all the parodies I grew up with. And many of those parodies would have been before my time if Cartoon Network hadn't rerun them, but blocks of old cartoons are rare now, and I don't know if parodies of Peter Lorre are still common. So do younger people recognize him? Even if they don't know the name, they can recognize that creepy guy voice. By the way, do you notice how all the comparisons I found used cartoon lore? That has to say something, right? Maybe it says something about the influence Peter Lorre had on pop culture. He was just one guy, and yet he's also this archetype. Or maybe it says more about people making these comparisons. They're probably animation nerds who don't pay attention to much else. The fact that the Redditor has to guess that Peter was popular in the 40s, and the one from DeviantArt calls him a black and white era movie star, makes me think they didn't bother Googling him before they made these posts. Yes, his most popular movies were in the 1940s, but he was still making color movies in the 60s. Thank you very much. People just don't come from one decade, you know. They generally live longer than that. Oh, I almost forgot. Here's how the redraw of Sea Lore is going. And there you see their redrawing of Peter Lorre Seaking. Well, this has been a lot of fun. If I really want to draw more Peter Lorre Pokemon based on his movies and stuff, like redoing my Sea Lore as a ghost water Pokemon or making Ghost Steel Pokemon based on the movie Mad Love, but I don't want to spend the entire month on this. I've got bigger fish to fry. No offense, Lore. None taken. Yeah, so that is there we go, the very strange story about how just a very silly fan art basically got promoted to an actual fan theory. Should I try and find a Pokemon with big ears and claim this Pokemon was based on black and white movie star Clark Gable or something? I don't know.